How many smells should a woman have? What on earth am I going to do with all that perfume? I will wear it. I will talk about it. I will give it away. I will dream about some bottles and forget that others exist. I will get very excited about new additions, and I will come back to old favorites. I will think about it, and I will let it convince me to stop thinking. I will depend on it for comfort and turn to it when I want to celebrate. I will treat it, in short, the way I do all other pleasures in my life. All those things that exist because someone besides me thinks that life, no matter how difficult it becomes, should be about more than the bare necessities. Coming to my senses. Hey Fragrance family, I'm David, I'm a fragrance pro. Welcome to another episode of David's Bookshelf. And today I have another book review for you on Coming to My Senses by Alyssa Harad. Now I think I'm pronouncing her name right, so if that's not the way I pronounce it, I'm sorry, Miss Harad. I actually tweeted her on Twitter asking her how you pronounce her name, and she told me, but I can't find the tweet. I'm just gonna have to go on memory, and I think that's how you pronounce it, Alyssa Harad. So before we get started, I'd just like to mention that this book was sent to me for review, but as you know, that's not going to color my opinion at all. Alright, so let's talk about the author real quick. Alyssa Harad is a very seasoned writer. This is her first and only book, but I believe that she's writing another one so far. She has a very great background in English. Her writing is very polished and it is easy to read and very enjoyable. And so I really have to give her props for just being just a great writer in general. Now this book is a fairly new release. It was published in 2013. And this had a lot of buzz in the fragrance world. I saw it in a lot of different groups on Facebook and different places. And it is really about Alyssa Harad, the author, and it explains her life coming to her senses with perfume and really starting a love for perfume and fragrance. Alright, so let's get to the things that I really love about this book. This book is made by a perfume lover, a fragrance nut, and I love it. When she writes about fragrance and perfume, you understand immediately where she's coming from. As someone who is a fragrance nut himself, reading this is just, I am there. It resonates so much with me. This book is talking about her love of fragrance and how she really shouldn't hide that. She wants to kind of come out, as it were, being a fragrance enthusiast. I really liked it because, you know, she is the same person that we are. So whenever we read this, we immediately identify with her story here. It goes a little bit off that topic though when it describes the period of her life when she's talking about fragrance. One of my criticisms here with this book was really that it wasn't just about perfume. I really wish it were more about that. It seems like the parts that we're talking about fragrance were actually fewer and less compared to the overall arc, which was the story of her life at this time when she's discovering fragrance. And during that time, she's getting married. So there's this long explanation of her life at the time when she's getting married and her wedding itself. And I was really kind of thrown out of the book with this because I'm just not really interested in that. Some parts of it were okay, and there are points of convergence with her story with her wedding and with fragrance in general, but the whole book is about coming to your senses. I mean, you know what it's supposed to be about, not about a wedding. So reading a really long wedding arc in the middle of a book that's supposed to be talking about perfume was really off-putting, honestly. And it was really just plodding through a lot of parts. It seemed like it could have been shortened a lot talking about the wedding or even taken out. I just wondered why that was here other than just to fill space. My other gripe with this is she tells a story about her life that is really non-traditional, and I know a lot of people will identify with that. I didn't. And some parts in her book just really made me sad. I just really felt, in a lot of ways, pity for some of the parts in her book about her, and I didn't want to feel that. I don't like reading that and feeling sorry for a person or the writer going through this, but I did, and that made me feel bad being the reader, feeling pity for someone that I really shouldn't feel bad about when they're talking about something that is supposedly a joy in their life. And my last gripe with this book was really kind of wrestling with the question that I was asking myself the entire time I was reading. Why was this made? Why was this written? I don't know much about Alyssa Harad other than what she's shown in her book and maybe said on her website or something, but whenever I read this, I ask the question, why is this interesting enough to write about? Why is this interesting enough to read? And I wasn't left with a positive answer. Typically, autobiographies that are written from a point of view of a person who is interesting enough to where the reader wants to read about that aspect of their life, even if they're controversial. But after finishing this book, I really came across thinking, this is a very well-written book of a mundane story that involves a topic that I love, which is perfume. But the overall story was kind of mundane. It is kind of like reading the autobiography of someone that just talked about how they had chicken for lunch. And so, who wants to read about that? What is interesting enough about this person or this story or this book that is publishable? And I don't know. I don't really know. And I don't mean that to sound ugly, and I don't want it to come across sounding ugly, but I just don't know why this was made. I love the idea of someone talking about their life and perfume and getting that across, but just the details of her life were just like, what's going on? As for audience, I'm not really sure who this would be for. I think a lot of perfume lovers would really like this at first. Maybe women might identify more with the point of view of a bride being married. So maybe this goes more towards a female perfume lover audience. As a perfume lover, I think part of it is worth a read, and maybe I can suggest it for many other perfume lovers who love reading books as well. But I would say don't buy it. I would say definitely borrow it or check it out at your local library maybe if they have it. But I don't think it's necessarily worth a buy. And when you read it, I would probably just skim over parts of the wedding, since that's not that important either. Overall, this is not a bad book, but it's not a great book. And it might not even be a very good book. It just hangs somewhere in the middle somewhere. I really wanted to love this book, but I didn't. It's hard to give an overall rating for this book because I loved some parts of this, but not overall. So I would say maybe a 3 out of 5, but that's as high as I can go. So that's all I have for this book review. Let me know if you've read the book down below. Do you like it, love it, hate it? Let me know. And of course, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe down below. We'll love you for it. I'll see you next time with another episode. I'm David with the Fragrance Bros. Bye.